Welcome back to Speaking Truth to Goodness. I'm one of your hosts, Patty Robron, and with me is Jerry Atkin, my co-host and co-conspirator in this subversive podcast. Today, we're excited to introduce Jeremy Beausoleil Smith, a candidate for District 4 who's deeply involved in shaping the future of downtown Portland. As a resident, husband, parent, and project manager at Portland State University, Jeremy brings a unique blend of personal and professional insights to his campaign. Jeremy is fervently dedicated to improving mental health services, advocating for renters' rights, and pushing for sustainable infrastructure in Portland. His approach is grounded in addressing the root causes of inequality to move Portland toward a safer, healthier, and more equitable future. In this episode, we'll talk about how Jeremy's personal experiences, including his journey with bipolar disorder and his recent family changes, fuel his activism and policy priorities. Join us as we explore the intersections of personal challenges in public service and how Jeremy's socialist values influence his vision for Portland. Here it is. Well, hi, Jeremy.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being part of this podcast series.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yeah. I'm wondering if we can start with a little bit about your background and how that led you to this moment when you're running for city council in Portland.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I can trace my first moment of really thinking about democracy and what it means to be an elected official to third grade. I was 8 years old. I had just gotten off of seeing Revenge of the Sith, the Star Wars movie, with my dad. And my third grade teacher was talking, we were learning about the Roman Republic. And she was putting it, you have the Republic in Star Wars, you have the Empire, you have all of these factions and the rebels. And I started getting really, I tuned in, because I was like, oh, Star Wars, that's pretty interesting. And started learning about the Roman Republic and elected officials and what it means to be a servant leader, what it means to represent others and be a voice for folks, because not everyone necessarily can be in that position. Everyone's got their job and the things that they need to do. So I thought that was a really interesting prospect, and it kind of stuck in my head and was always kind of drawn to leadership positions. And throughout elementary, middle, and high school, I was pretty much always in some leadership position. In high school, like student body president, and then at Virginia Tech, I was also the student body president there, where I went to college, and just had a real fascination with politics and getting good folks elected.
So you're not actually a stranger to running for office.
No, not at all.
Right.
I've done it a number of times on smaller scales. And so, but even Virginia Tech, it has over 30,000 undergraduate students, which is, full-time residents in Blacksburg, the town that Virginia Tech is in. It's only about 10,000. So It was representing a lot of people. And it was quite the job then.
So what's impressive to me is that you remember third grade. I had trouble doing that. But so you've been dealing with negotiating, balancing perspectives, getting people to work together from childhood. That's an important skill. So you can come with the best ideas in the world into a setting and not know how to maneuver in the circumstance and not be very effective. Very far back in the 60s, we used to say, having correct line and 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee. So knowing what you're talking about, knowing what you think needs to happen, and actually making it happen are two completely different things.
Yeah, I very much crowdsource my ideas. I really like talking to people, and I'm not necessarily sold on any one thing. I have ideas that I think would be helpful, but at the end of the day, I ultimately just want to do what people want. And so I think that's what your job is as an elected official. It's not really to, again, it's servant leadership. You're serving the people that elected you, and if you're not, your job is to be a good listener and not necessarily rule with this iron fist of like, I have all of the answers and I'm the person that can fix all of this. I just don't really buy into that. I don't think there's any one person, but the collective mindset, there's a lot of good ideas out there. So.
How is it that this insight, some many elected officials did not get the memo?
I think that it boils down to, who gets attracted to these positions and who it's accessible for, because it generally is not accessible for the working class. It's very difficult to juggle if you just your job and all of your errands and your responsibilities to your family, and if you are overworked, underpaid, the last thing that you have energy for is to tune in to what is happening politically.
I agree with you. That's a huge problem in a ostensibly people-led democracy situation. Yeah,
for sure.
Now, I know from the notes that you identify as a socialist, and I feel like the things you were just talking about are very interlaced with that. If you think so too, can you share maybe about that journey of calling yourself a socialist and how that additionally informs what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Virginia Beach in the backyard of Norfolk Naval Station, which is the largest Navy base in the world. And I was fed so much American exceptionalism, patriotism, and also just as I got older, realizing I was like told so often that to be a good American, you go and you serve your country. And the propaganda just goes so deep in Virginia Beach and in the schools as well. So when I got to college, I joined the Navy ROTC and I did that. And my roommates, I couldn't see eye to eye with a lot of the people that were in the Corps Cadets and Navy ROTC, because I had just come back from my first opportunity of going out of the country. I had gotten to go to England and Denmark. And when I was in Copenhagen, I didn't see many houseless people. I saw very equitable society. Most everyone seemed fairly happy. I know Denmark, nowhere is a utopia. There's no necessarily perfect society, but it kind of was striking me as having the freedom that I had been told that we had in the United States, but I didn't necessarily, it didn't jive with me because I still saw houseless people in Virginia Beach. There was so much that wasn't making sense to me and it wasn't equitable. And so I had just come back from that trip and kind of got turned on. I was like, what is their governmental system in Denmark? And it was democratic socialism, I came to find out. And I was like, do we have that here? And so I started researching it, and I find this old senator from Vermont that a lot of us know is Bernie Sanders. And I was reading through his stuff, and I was really skeptical because I had been raised, conservative, Republican. And I started looking at his platform. I was like, oh, wait, I actually agree with a lot of this. And so I just went down that rabbit hole and just learned more and more about what socialism actually is, that there is precedence for it in the United States, and that the federal government and state, pretty much every level of government, has tried very hard to push down socialism in this country in a working class movement. And that to me tells you everything that you need to know, is that how hard the business interests in this country and oligarchs and the truly uber rich try to just stem these movements. And you're like, why do you have to scratch your head and think why do you care so much? Why? Because, you're benefiting from this system right now.
Before you got here, and Patty's setting up, we already had our tantrum about capitalism and healthcare. Because, it's not just an idea. There are people who theoretically think capitalism is a problem, and there are people whose lives are ground down to nothing by these forces. So if you're going to be an anti-capitalist, it better be in your gut. Yeah. Up here is not nearly enough. So we have a little pool of rage over here that we occasionally tap into. How much do you want today, Patty? Here's your portion of rage. And you see, it's like we're told America's the best place. We are so lucky to be oppressed like this. Wait a minute, that's not true. What did I miss? For me, I lived in Africa for 3 years, so that sort of turned my life around. But I love the fact that you actually understand how this system works and who it works for.
Yeah.
And that you've had this experience of then trying to put it in different political contexts and find a constructive consensus to work with. Again, it just seems like these are extraordinarily important things to bring to a moment in Portland's history which has never existed before and will never exist again. We'll probably get into talking more about that later, that this is a true opportunity to completely change the nature of politics in Portland. I've been, over the course of these interviews, increasingly excited about this historical moment and what's actually possible. There has never been a moment like this. There will never be another moment like this.
Yeah.
So this is really important stuff.
Well, the charter reform was a huge catalyst for me jumping in this time around because I am very new to Portland, and I definitely think that I have a lot to learn. But the best way to have gotten educated on all of the groups here and the systems has been jumping into the race and just meeting all these folks and a lot of older folks that have been fighting the good fight for a long time and are trying to like coach me up, and they're like, hey, I want you to know about this history of Portland. And like there's a lot of energy for change, and people see me and they're like, new person. Like this guy, and I bring to the table that I am not jaded by the way that things have been in Portland. I bring enthusiasm, I bring curiosity and a genuine willingness to learn and not just act like I'm coming to the table with all of the answers right now. And I think we need more people in government that have that curious mindset and are wanting to learn more from the people that they actually represent.
So the word that's coming to mind is subversive.
Subversive?
He's very subversive.
This all seems very above board to me.
He's going to subvert the toxic swamp.
All right.
Subversion is not a bad thing. It depends on what you're subverting.
It's true.
You can
Okay, I can take that.
But that's the sense of that these ideas, which are so simple and so self-evident, are completely absent from the political conversation.
Now, I'm guessing that you are linked in with some like organizations within Portland, and you mentioned that you've gotten some really good information about Portland's history and things from various people you've connected with. And so I'm kind of curious to know what organizations, groups, and even mentors that you are finding yourself in alignment with as you move through this process.
Absolutely. So I think the big one, and this is kind of where I wanted to begin, was the Portland Democratic Socialist chapter, which is truly so extensive and has so many facets to it. And I was involved in Democratic Socialist back in college, and we had one in like Southwest Virginia chapter, but it is not at the level of what Portland Democratic Socialist is. And there are over 1,000 members in it, and that's not even the peak. I think the pandemic really, definitely there was a dip in membership, but with this election and the charter reform, there's a lot of new energy in it. So just meeting people in that organization has been great. Sunrise Movement, I never really had a chance to get involved with them back in college, so it's cool to get more involved with them. And I love that there's a lot of high schoolers in that organization. There's some people who are 14, 15, and they're in it. They know what's going on, and they are very informed on especially the local environmental stuff. And I've been very impressed. And even just being aware of 350 PDX, Extinction Rebellion, like all of these organizations, everything kind of what's going on over at Green Anchors and over there by Cathedral Park, that was all new to me, and that's been interesting. In also just learning about the unions too. In Virginia, it's a right-to-work state. The labor movement has been beaten down for well over a century. There's been so much union busting, and unions. It's not really a culture in Virginia. You know, I gotta imagine some, but out here, to have so many active unions has been a huge thing. And I've learned so much from this first go around, but District 4 and District 3 are up for re-election again in 2 years. And I think, I've learned so many lessons already. And if like I had a fresh start, it would be to like really, get more educated on the unions and what's out there. It's kind of like by the time I jumped in at the end of February, it already felt like I was behind, because there's a lot of unions that had already endorsed 3 candidates.
So if you talk about DSA, so Jamie Partridge,
Yeah.
has been a friend for about 25 years.
Yeah.
I once accused him of elder abuse because he had his parents phone banking.
Jerry.
It's like...
Yeah.
So Jamie is has an extraordinary ability and energy, which he is older now, as am I, but he's been through it. He's a great mentor because he's tried to link labor into the larger social movements. First, I've only known him for 25 years, so for at least 25 years, but more like 30. And he's indefatigable. I mean, that's a long, too many syllables in that word, but he just keeps going on and on and on. He's extraordinary, and we worked in Jobs with Justice together for a number of years. He's very special.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit, Portland Democratic Socialist sometimes feels like the Jamie Partridge show a little bit, but it's good to have him, and I look forward to getting to know him a lot better. My wife actually just unionized her workplace over at Unity Behavioral Health, the behavioral health therapists. They just unionized about 60 of them. So
who did they organize with?
They went with O&A, so the nurses.
That's a sector that the Wobblies were organizing 25 years ago, the IWW.
Okay.
Really, you know what a wobbly is?
Nope. No, I grew up in kind of a, like, we're against unions because that's how people take advantage of things kind of mentality. Maybe you did too, growing up conservative.
Yeah, well, it's like the union's going to tell you what to do, and, you want your individuality, you want your freedom, you don't want these people telling you what to do. And it's like, well, there's people telling you what to do anyways, and you have no control over your life. So if you have a union, you might actually be able to have a little agency.
So interesting.
In how you're treated at work.
It's amazing to recognize it when you talk about union busting. I mean, it isn't just the workplace shenanigans that's, banned in other countries and we still do here. It's like a psychological game being played on all of us, too.
Yeah. The propaganda goes deep. I really feel like the United States does propaganda better than any other country.
We are good at that.
Yeah, and like getting people to vote against their own best interests and do things that really are not helping them at all. But it goes deep, and that's generational trauma of like it's being passed down. And when we talk about being beat down, like I'm talking about physically hurt by either police, union busting forces. Like this is not.
You just said
it's
the
physical
magic word, trauma. Mm-hmm. Patty believes in trauma only because it's real and has an effect. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it shapes so much more than I think we give it credit for.
So let me just, as my random mind works, we're also just talking about. There's a phrase. I worked with workers, plant closures, for my work life, but there's this idea of meritocracy, which dovetails nicely with American individualism. And it's like, if you work hard enough, you can be anybody. You can do anything you want. This is a free country. There are no class barriers. Bull fucking shit. Sorry.
We're allowed to swear on this podcast. It's fine.
So in some ways it sounds merit, but like I told Pat, anything that ends with rule by, you have to look at. But it's not ruled by merit. It's ruled by fucking privilege. It's ruled by privilege.
Yeah.
Then merit enters in at some point, but that's not. And it's again one of those screens that make people realize, well, I haven't been successful in the way I hoped to, but it's my fault.
Yeah.
And believe me, it's not. And so one of the things that we carried with us was this message that, no, that's not.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of folks that think that they're disenfranchised millionaires and they're just one big break away from, hitting it big. And
Ooh.
I really, I a lot of these folks are like living paycheck to paycheck, and like, my friend, you are one paycheck away from being houseless. Right. Like, you are not about to become, you're not going to be Elon Musk. You're not going to be Jeff Bezos. And if you look at those folks, it's exactly what Jerry was just saying about privilege. Bill Gates, mom worked at IBM.
Yeah.
Like, the starting point is completely different, and so much of your success in life is extremely dependent on what zip code you were born into.
Yes.
It's your parents. It's it's not meritocracy.
Having this depth of conversation in a political context is subversive. That's
All
my
right.
word. That's my word for today. Subversive.
I like it. So we talked about DSA and your connection to them and how important that's been. I'm curious if the majority of your connections you find coming through that organization, or if there's other mentors and groups that you wanted to kind of shout out and note your connection to.
Yeah. Gray Panthers as well. Lou
What
Church.
is that?
It's focused on elderly issues, but also issues that revolve around gun reform, issues that it's really just like most civil rights. So I have really forged a friendship with Lou Church over there, who is awesome, and it's great to have that intergenerational solidarity.
Oh, I know something about that,
Yeah.
Jerry.
Of like,
cool.
It's not just old people bad, because I think that there's a lot of sentiment in Gen Z that it's like, oh, we can't, the baby boomers, they hate us, they blame everything on us, and it started with the millennials, like, they're ruining everything, and then it's been Gen Z that we're all lazy and we don't want to work, and we're all just the quote unquote snowflakes and like demeaning us, like.
Well, again, in a sense, it's just another example of how we're pitted against each other. And that's the basis of maintaining power with a small group of people, entitled people, is to make the other groups put them, or it's a limited resource. If you get something, they can't have anything.
Yeah.
So you take care of your own interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gray Panthers is a great source. So what other folks have you found to be a source of inspiration and hope?
I'm sure they would rather remain unnamed, but I've had some folks come to me about the neighborhood associations and getting me educated on some of the things that, the good, the bad, and the ugly on it. And there is the Southwest Neighborhoods Incorporated, which I don't know if y'all know much about that. But with these new districts, there is all of this reorganizing of the neighborhood associations, and that, they get taxpayer money, and they're kind of opaque a little bit. As someone, a transplant and trying to get involved in local government, and that's sort of your like most basic level of entrance into having some agency over your life. And it was a little difficult to like get into the Zoom meetings. Like, there was one time that someone was sick and then the Zoom meeting just got canceled, and I was like, why is there only one person that is in charge of running this meeting? Like, surely there should be one other person at least that could, in that person's absence, do this. And it's now the District 4 coalition, and that's representing like 150,000 people. So we need to make sure that those things are open to the public. There isn't a meeting in a neighborhood association that shouldn't be recorded and accessible through, if it's YouTube or some platform that people can reference later. Like, none of these conversations should be done in darkness, and with the way the technology is now, there's really no reason for these like behind closed doors meetings, especially when what your neighborhood association is doing really affects your life. And as a renter especially, it's really hard to even know what neighborhood association you're represented by, or
We started talking about this last time, I think, maybe the time before. Neighborhood associations are key. They tend to run the gamut from have a clue to have no clue, or have a clue and it's their clue and they want to maintain their clue, i.e. control, especially property owners who feel like the neighborhood association should be there to protect them.
Yeah.
That's going to be a struggle that has to be the community organizing necessity that this brings to the fore is enormous.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, I think, of responsibility on people who actually understand how these things work to help in the re-education process and to not let people be pushed out.
Yeah.
You have a right. This is your neighborhood association. Don't let anyone tell you.
And also being forward facing, like having that outreach of like, I just don't, I think that there could be more done to kind of like get it in your face of like,
Right.
hey,
Exactly.
this exists. These are the services that it offers. One thing that's been cool that I learned about is the neighborhood emergency teams. And that actually, Andrea kind of got me a little educated on that. And, you know, no matter what happens with this election, I've learned so many opportunities to get more involved in Portland. And I would definitely like to be on my neighborhood emergency team in Lair Hill. I think that would be something that I'd get a lot out of and could offer a lot too.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense that you're feeling like kind of a late entry to this process. I see like this is a seed that you are planting and starting to cultivate now.
Yeah.
So how do you see, like, win or lose, what do you see as your main focus of what you want to make better for the people of Portland and District 4?
Definitely. So one of the projects I get to work on right now at Portland State is the iTech Center. So this is the Indigenous, Traditional, Ecological, and Cultural Knowledge Center.
Whoa.
And so this is for the Indigenous Studies program. There's going to be a lot of crossover with biology and the architecture program. And we're trying to kind of change the way the capital projects are done, you know, at least at Portland State. And Portland State is the largest landowner in downtown Portland. We have like 50 some odd buildings, right? And so we're trying to go after right now a living building challenge, which is a really cool opportunity to create net zero buildings and off the grid. So it's very early development stages, but
How does that compare to like a LEED certification?
I think LEED has gotten better, and I feel like LEED is really focused on, there's a lot of box checking. And I feel like Living Building Challenge is a little bit more comprehensive in the sense that it goes a lot farther than LEED.
Okay.
I think LEED is a lot in the processes of constructing it, and then the living building is, you know, once this building is completed, that it will be not only net zero, but even contributing in a net positive way to the environment, whether that's socially, accessibility wise, you know, the actual production of the energy. LEED doesn't quite go as far with the net zero. I think that they've added a lot to it even since I was in college, but there's red lists in the Living Building Challenge, and these are like, as we get farther along, you know, pretty much all of our buildings have asbestos in them, like hazardous materials. And so that's the big rush now, is to get all the asbestos containing material out of our buildings. And like as we develop better technologies, have better research about what is making us sick. Like a lot of our buildings are making us ill. And so
Okay.
The red list in Living Building Challenge, these are things that are harmful to our health. These are things that are harmful to the environment. So it's really a lot more comprehensive. And even LEED is very like building centric only in my opinion, but Living Building Challenge incorporates a lot more of that like social aspect of like, does this building bring us joy? Does this building bring community together? It's a lot more.
So
and
it's
lead.
almost as if it's like intersectionality.
Oh yeah, how so?
A little bit.
All these things are connected. All these things are connected.
Yeah.
So you can't just go in and make a building net zero and think you've won something. It's definitely a good step. But it has, from my perspective, part of a larger understanding of climate and what's actually happening and how projects like this need to be linked, and the vision that you described for living building, whatever it was,
Yeah.
is expansive as opposed to contained,
Yeah.
so that it can
Yeah.
spread out and sort of connect and be part of. I think what you're saying is, in this campaign, you've met a lot of interesting people, and you won't have met them if you don't get elected, right?
Yeah.
So now you have a network
Yeah.
that helps educate you on the one hand, but allows you to collaborate in ways that weren't possible. And I think Andrew's been very clear that this process of collaboration within the campaign
Yeah.
is in itself earth-shaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to be setting some record at this point. I think there's like 90 some odd candidates in the race. And like, this is what Portland voters wanted. It's more participation in democracy. And even some of the people in the race whose policies I vehemently disagree with, they're interesting people in their own right. And they have done a lot of interesting things to get to this point. Like, one doesn't get to the point where they run for Portland City Council without experiencing a couple of things in their life. But to circle back to your original question, Patty, I really believe, and the reason I brought up the iTech Center is because I learned from Judy Bluehorse Skelton, who's an awesome resource professor at Portland State, this mantra of slow change is long change. And so I did feel like I was really up in the air about even jumping in this time around, but it's such a historic and interesting moment. I couldn't stay out of it. Just as like a politics nerd, like I was like, I feel like I want to be a part of that. And so it's been really interesting to just, and meet people like yourselves as well. So I think if I've got to like focus more on like 2026, you kind of were talking about like planting a seed. Like, I want it to be organic. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm kind of like forcing it, because I am new, and I think that you do need to get to know the history of a place a little bit before you might be in a position where you're making huge decisions about how people's lives are going. But I take it really seriously. So I think at this point I was hitting it super hard for like 3 months. I think I got slightly burnt out by it, and I pulled back a little bit this month, and I'm slowly getting back to a balance. And this is like one of the first things I'm kind of easing myself back in on.
Great.
So yeah, and this has been perfect. So,
Well, I mean, it's great, though, to hear the things you have to say. Like, I think what you do bring by your own words is you bring an outsider's perspective and an understanding of how some of this goes in other places. And you think it's really cool what's happening here, right? So that, I think that's huge. And so no matter how the election goes, like, it's awesome that you're linked in and you're going to get to contribute. But let's say you do get elected, right? How do you see what you're doing for the university right now? How do you see that, like, clean building challenge? Is that what you said?
living building challenge.
Living building
Yeah.
challenge. Do you see that living building challenge or any aspects of that as something that would really be core to what you wanted to bring to Portland in your time?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm really passionate about is sustainable infrastructure, and the intersectionality of a lot of these issues is that.
Fine. I'll just go in the other room. I don't want to be part of this. I don't have to put up with this crap. Like I said, it's my house.
But our built environment, there's so much, it can positively impact us or it can negatively impact us. And I think something that really stuck out to me is that 30% of commercial space in Portland is vacant. And the fact that we are not able to create more short-term housing to get people kind of triaged and back up to, adjust meds and help people detox and get people at a point, that they feel like they can do what is healthily sustainable and fulfilling. I just disagree that we can't we can definitely do this. You know, we can retrofit buildings. There's a lot that goes into the codes and regulations of like seismically upgrade. There's a lot more that you have to do for a residential space than you have to do for a commercial space. So, but there's kind of some ways, and I've talked to some different people, even a couple people in the state legislature, which is cool, that kind of had some interest in what I was doing, that have shared some of these same ideas, and we have to get creative about it. But also there's some like way less creative ideas that we can be doing. In our apartment complexes, there's really no stipulation on what their occupancy rate has to be. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that if you own one of these huge apartment complexes downtown and you don't have a 90%, 95% occupancy rate, there needs to be some kind of ramification for that. And like, whether it's fines, or we could have a conversation about what that kind of looks like, but you need to be renting those out, because what they'll do is they'll keep a bunch of them empty. They'll charge whatever rent they think they can get away with. And if it doesn't get rented, it doesn't get rented. So like I'd be really interested to see more what the vacancy rates are in a lot of these apartment complexes. Like I just disagree that we don't have enough housing right now. And I feel like this conversation always is like, so much of the conversation right now that I hear from other candidates is affordable housing, we got to build more. And I'm like, what developer's paying you to say this? Because
subversive.
Yeah, this is the subversive
intersectionality,
episode.
subversive, the two words of the day.
Well, so I mean, I'm thinking about what you're saying. This is something I've never really thought about before. And I'm thinking, well, right, so the city would greenlight buildings for apartments to be built, thinking people will live in those apartments and shop in that area. Mm-hmm. And so then all of a sudden, 60% of what they expected isn't there. And those shops are now in peril.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's making some sense. And I don't understand how that pencils. Like building owners with not apparently having much income coming back from their properties. I don't understand how they can let it sit empty either.
Yeah, I think that there's like some level of being able to like write it off like on your taxes. So I definitely want to look more into that. But yeah, I don't know. And something Andrew and I had spoken about too is like, when we have these housing developments, like getting people the jobs that would be required to take care of these spaces, you know. And like we were kind of envisioning this idea of like, it has a cafeteria and it has a nursing station within it where people can get their meds adjusted. And you know, if there's going to be custodial work that has to be done, we could be bringing in unions and getting people. We need so many people in the trades. We are in such a shortage of craftspeople, and these are good jobs. You know, it's great work that is truly contributing to what we need. There's plenty of work to do. We have such a backlog of projects right now at Portland State, so it's definitely, we're not at a loss for work to do by any means, but
or people to do it. Really, there's kind of a lot of us.
Definitely, and I fully believe that there's people. I just reject this notion that like people don't want to work. I think people, they want to be in harmony with other folks. They want to contribute. Like, I think that everyone has, you know, varying levels of what they're able to do, but just because, you know, one person might be really good at something and you don't really like to do that thing, and you know, it all kind of works. And we actually don't all have to be working 100% all of the time.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
We all shared the load, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, it seems like very practical ideas that our systems keep us from enacting.
Yeah, and I mean, some of these things, you know, it's great to talk about it in theory or kind of in the 10,000 foot level, but what does that look like in execution is kind of, you know, it's a little bit more difficult. And that's where dialogue comes in and collaboration and, you know, actually whittling it down to what could we do legislative wise. But in this new system, it just, I feel like the city councilors are so much more visionary than they have been in the past, because we'll have a city administrator now, which is like,
Right.
that's going to be groundbreaking in and of itself, you know?
Okay.
So
Can you explain why that would be? Like why?
because
that makes a
right
difference?
now, from my understanding, the commissioners oversee different service areas in the city, like different bureaus. And so they have to kind of balance being a legislator and administering and overseeing these bureaus. So it's kind of an impossible job. Like I think about, you know, some of the people that are in the mayoral race right now, and it is interesting to see that 3 of the 4 commissioners, all of them are running again, but except for Ted Wheeler, but that 3 of the 4 commissioners are running for mayor. So
Good, keep them out of it.
they count to the city council.
Did I just say that? I did, didn't I?
I didn't hear a thing.
Sometimes I'm so brilliant I scare myself.
So did you have anything, final words you wanted to say about running the campaign before we jump into who you are?
I think at this point, I've learned a lot. The small donor election program is really impressive that Portland has that. The 9-to-1 match up to $20 is amazing. I think at this point, you know, if anything I say resonates with you, if you want to throw me $5, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate that.
Can you share with our listeners where they can go to donate to your campaign?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, jeremy4pdx.com, and my first name is Jeremy.
Great. All right. So if people give you $5,
It
what
will
does
turn
that do?
into $50 for my campaign.
Amazing.
What if they give you $50?
The first $20 would be matched, so that would be $230 then.
First,
So.
do you take cash?
Yeah, we can do cash.
Talk to me afterwards.
Okay, sounds good.
Meet me after the meeting.
Until we start talking to each other, for starters, and then about important things, the limits to what we can hope to accomplish are great.
Yeah.
So the conversation is actually, now I'm thinking of it as yeast. The conversation will help the bread rise.
That's right.
That's a pathetic example, isn't it? But I think it's true. In other words, the basic things, we will not fix what's wrong with the society from the top.
Yeah.
We will only heal from
Absolutely.
regular people feeling like their conversation matters. Every time you talk to a person, it helps wear down that sense of what I think doesn't matter, what I say doesn't matter, because just your presence and your reaching out begins to break down some of the fundamental issues that underlie everything. So you're not in this, and if you win, you're going to take your chips and go home. You're in this to be in this process in whatever form, and being in this election process, obviously, is transformative. And I think it's transformative, maybe not for all the candidates, but I think this is a brand new process.
Yeah.
And so I get excited, which the idea of being excited about local politics had not occurred to me until we started doing this, right? Because I lived in Portland for 30 years, and then I lived here in the 70s as well, when it was a terrible system, and because the problems were of a smaller scale, you could get away with it. But as problems increased, capacity to deal with them did not, because the actual structure can't work. Yeah. Citywide elections, strong mayor, can't fix what needs to be fixed, starting with the buildings. And I just want to say that the fact that you actually know how to build something, in my mind, is a great plus, because it's not abstract. It's in the concrete that you're pouring. It's in the spaces you're designing. Yeah. It's the vision you have of how these spaces can be used, right? Concrete. We're talking about, because you pour concrete.
But hopefully not concrete.
Concretely.
It's not very sustainable, Jerry.
But concrete is bad.
Well, I don't know.
River silt.
It has its place still in construction, for sure.
Yeah, I suppose you can't really get away with
Although
that.
mass timber is taking it away, but concrete foundations are still kind of the standard for sure, but there's hempcrete.
Yes.
There's a lot of new ideas. But kind of to one of your points, I think that we need people, and my little slogan is all in on Portland, because I want people to know I'm here for the long haul. I love this place. I absolutely feel like it has such a good basis, and that's because, not for a lack of trying, that there's been a lot of people pushing for a long time, and I view this city as my home. I feel more like I can be myself here than I ever could be back in Virginia. I'm happy to be here.
Low bar.
Yeah. There's some very beautiful parts of Virginia and still a lot of people there that I love. I feel like the political situation has gone in a direction that I'm not super happy with, but there's a lot of people fighting the good fight there too. So
that's one of the things that sometimes I acknowledge that I know enough to be discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not? Because there are so many good people doing such good work against such long odds, and everything we do to connect those struggles and to acknowledge, to speak truth to that goodness, how
That's
important
right.
it is that we never, I seem to not be programmed in any way to ever give up. It's just like, I see too much goodness around me. So I'm hopeful, and the more we talk to each other, and not in a superficial way about the Super Bowl or, the betting odds or fantasy football or whatever that thing
I read
is.
the other day that Gen Z is the generation that hates talking about sports the most at work.
I am so glad for that.
I feel like I know just enough about sports to talk about it with the guys at work. And it's not because I enjoy sports. I really don't. Just have something to talk about.
Right.
And that kind of plays into, meeting people where they are. You got to speak to people in a language that they understand. And, there's no harm in talking about sports. It's just sports.
Well, so if you don't watch sports, I'm kind of curious now that we're going to enter into learning more about you as a person. What do you do in the midst of this campaign, and I presume working full-time also? What do you do to rest, recharge, relax? I am hearing you say you have a family, you have a house. Tell me what that looks like in your life.
Yeah. So, and this kind of goes into just recently kind of getting overloaded. I got handed a bunch more work, just at my full-time job. I have a pretty new marriage and a stepson. We got married back in January of this year. And so that navigating the new family has been huge. And then kind of just tacking on also buying a house and everything. An older home is built in 1934. And so there's been a lot to deal with. So I think it's really important to take care of your mental health. It's okay. I had one of my therapists told me that one of my superpowers is my ability to quit things. And that, it sounds terrible. It doesn't sound like a good thing at face value. But I think a lot of people get locked into relationships, jobs, just different obligations, and they just feel trapped. And I hate that feeling. I don't like being trapped in any sense of it. And I think it's okay to peel back on if something is not healthily sustainable, if it's not fulfilling you that's okay. And
you're supposed to do it all. What's your problem?
I know. And I tend to do that, and there's times.
Stop it.
Well, you mentioned I think you are saying you're a part of Gen Z.
Yeah, I'm the oldest Gen Zer.
So you're just over that
line.
line.
1997.
Okay, so how, do you see a difference then, a strong difference in mentality coming in with the Gen Z folks now, coming into their, the fullness of their adult life?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're all stressed out, super anxious, and really depressed.
What do you think that means for all of us?
A lot of us are on prescription medications. I think there's some serious disenfranchised and being disenchanted with our system. I think you even just look at and I know we're shifting into more of the personal, but so much of my life is like politics too.
Yeah, it's all mixed. It's fine.
All of my family, they just know that if they get me started on politics. But I mean, even just looking at the federal election, it's like these are our choices. Like, why should I vote? Like, why should I care? And I can't really fault people for that. You know, especially young folks or really any generation of like. Yeah, what is this current system doing to involve you to make this country somewhere worth living and getting excited about? And so I think a lot of us are demoralized by inaction on the climate crisis. You know, I'm not really big on the electric vehicles. I think that there is so much. I don't think it's the solution that folks think it is. I think it encourages more car infrastructure, which it's unsustainable. It truly cannot continue the way that it is. I mean, even just driving here is like traffic, and I know in Portland it's just getting worse, and building another lane does not work. We have to invest in mass transit.
Yeah.
And in a big way. So in whatever form that takes, you know, if it's buses, if it's the streetcar, the MAX, like hit it from, if it's more pedestrian areas, biking, hit it from every angle, and we'll actually have options. I'm big on that. I don't like ultimatums for myself or others. Like if you have a this or that, two options, that's an ultimatum. You know, you need at least three for you to actually like have a choice, right? So I think you also have to make it more appealing to take mass transit or walk or bike to be able to, you know, entice people to do that instead of hopping in their car.
What if we had a city government that was actually responsive
and reflective of the people's wants and desires? Is that what you're suggesting,
has
Jerry?
To be a bad thing. Because it was a good thing. Wouldn't we have done it? Oh, wait.
Well, okay, so I'm going to ask a question maybe kind of again. So what do you do to rest in the midst of all of that?
I'm really bad.
Do you rest?
I'm really bad at resting. And I think that kind of played into maybe my burnout a little bit too, is I was not sleeping as much as I should have. I was definitely at a net negative on my sleep schedule, and then I was getting kind of like ramped up, and this kind of goes into the bipolar too. We can kind of talk about that as well. Sleep is really important for anyone, but I do not get sleepy. I will stay up.
So for the listeners, you have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could talk about that a little bit more. But to take care of myself, I mean, I did pull back. There were a lot of events that I wanted to plan, and I might still be able to get to them. But I recently had a psychiatrist appointment because I was kind of struggling a little bit, because I take a pill called Seroquel that helps me go to sleep, and I upped my dose with my, working with my psychiatrist, and then it did help me go to sleep, but then I had depressive symptoms, and I just was having a lot of trouble getting out of bed and like getting to work on time, and just keeping up with my family obligations and everything. And so I've kind of like slowly been coming back out of that and like leveling off. So I don't know. I played a lot of video games. I read my book. A lot of just hanging out and being with my family, like being with my partner, and she brings me a lot of peace in this world. And she, works in the mental health field, so she definitely gets it and gives me a lot of grace and care and love.
So
and
you say you have kids?
Just so. Megan, my spouse, they had a child when they were 16, and so we have a 10-year-old.
Wow.
10-year-old stepson, and so we're kind of getting to like grow up with him. Like he is my stepson, but he's just like my little friend. He tells me I'm his best friend like all the time, and I'm just like, that's cool to hear that from a 10-year-old that I'm not related to, but like. In that way, like, I just see him, he definitely views me as, like, a father figure, and, like, he's one of my best friends in this world, so.
Treat him with love and respect.
Yeah, and he's a person, and, like, I respect him for being an individual, but he, like, very much, like, he likes spending time with us still. And I think that, it's not necessarily the most ideal situation to have a child that young, but it opens up. I'm very much someone that I see challenges, but I'm just like, that's an opportunity, And I had never thought about dating someone that had a child, or especially marrying someone that had a child, and it's been very rewarding in ways that I didn't expect. It's also challenging. It's not easy at all, to balance all of this and also have someone that you're responsible for.
Because you are how old?
I'm 27.
27.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
That's
so-
amazing. Yeah.
One of the things that I think is important about you now dealing with the reality of having that responsibility, having a child, having that love, but that responsibility is that's most people's lives.
Yeah.
So you now understand something about other people's lives that you actually can't understand abstractly. I mean, you can. Here's one of the problems that I find with all the college students who unions now use to organize. They're organizing workers with families, and they do not understand what that means. Therefore, I think generically, not because there's anything there, in fact, amazing, but people don't trust that they understand. So it's better to organize, and that's the way it used to be done in unions, with people who had come up through the union, with families, with responsibilities. So I think everything that gives you a new insight into people's lives makes you a better candidate, makes you a better person, and lets you have way more fun. I mean, the 10-year-old, Patty's daughters are soon to be 13 and just turned 15. I hang out with them from time to time. It's so fucking cool. It would be even more dull and boring if it weren't for them.
Yeah.
Because they just open up the world to you. And also, the pure energy of life in a healthy child, a child that's loved and cared for, is like a battery that you can run off of.
Yeah. And it's kind of like it's a call to action as well, of just you have this person, and I have all these lofty goals for society and what I would like for it. But even in this process, like, he has told me, he's like, I don't like politics. Like, he hears like his mom and I talk about it, and he's like, I think I hate politics. And that was kind of like another signal to me that I needed to pull back a little bit and slow down, because he's 10, and like, we were talking to him, we were educating him on what's happening in Palestine and in the Congo, and like, these are big things for a 10-year-old to be like taking on, and even just what's going on in this country. And so I think that he got a little overloaded on it, and I think it's important to not hide those things or shelter him, but I think that it's important to do it in moderation, and also in a way that is still respectful of his childhood and not making him grow up too quickly, because I think that, but the world at this point, it kind of feels like it does make you grow up a little quick, but maybe it was always that way.
Well, I mean, again, I think in the United States, you don't have to grow up quickly if you belong to a certain class.
That's fair.
You have certain levels of privilege.
Yeah.
I got called. Did you call me out on it? I think maybe it was you, because you call me out all the time. I said politics was better when I was growing up. People talked to each other, and then it was you or someone else said, if you were white.
Yeah.
And I thought, shit. I mean, I'm so cool, and I never thought that there's so many disenfranchised communities, so we just tend to look at what we can see and not the invisible suffering, the invisible disenfranchising of people, and then we have to care about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem, is you only have more things to care about the more you know. So there's a little bit of overload possible, he said, from experience. But I'll tell you, at 83, I do not care any less about people being oppressed than I did when I was 23.
Yeah, I feel like I heard that a lot when I was younger. Like, oh, you'll be more conservative when you know, once you're paying taxes and you have a job and all that. I'm like, no, honestly, I'm like more radicalized than ever. Just like seeing, like, I'm seeing it firsthand now. All the things that I heard about But now I'm like in the midst of it, and I see it on a daily basis.
Well, why do people do that? Why did they pull back and become more conservative? It's because as they grew up, they were taught to be more and more afraid, and so therefore they had to pull back so they could protect what they had. And I see that you're seeing it differently, that we're not going to get there by everyone protecting themselves. We're going to get there by working together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that there is kind of a mentality of like, I got mine, and so the system worked for me. And I'm an incredibly privileged person, and I've been able to travel a lot of places, and I have very awesome parents that have afforded me a lot of opportunities and kept me, through my whole manic episode and afterwards, like really providing support through that. But not everyone has that, and that's why another reason I'm in this race and gravitated towards politics is like, I want people to have what I've had. I truly believe that anyone given the resources, care, energy that I've been given would be in my exact same spot. So why don't we give it to them? And like, we have enough. We live in a country and world of surplus, and that we have built so many structures at this point. Like, it's just artificial scarcity. It's keeping it it's gatekeeping homes from folks because they don't have some green paper in their pocket or some numbers in their checking account. It's like, let's get a grip on it. Like, have some perspective. These things were not always the way that they've become. This is very recent history.
So it harkens back to something that you were saying is, we have to be sustainable. We have to be here for the long haul. Mm. It's easy to burn out. It's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to get crushed by the forces that you're pitted against. So I think the more we collectivize, the more we share our thoughts and feelings with the people around us. One of the things that I've certainly learned over all these years is that friendship sustains you, and it's worth putting energy into. And we usually don't have time to put energy into it, and that comes to our detriment. So I think one of the things about the way we organize work around capitalism is, and because the Depression had a big part in it, we don't have the ethnic communities, we don't have the working class communities, we don't have intergenerational families living either together. And so we've lost something. Yeah. So we need to rebuild something to replace it. And how we treat people is the building block of that. And
I think being very serious and intentional about what your definition of a family is as well, because I think you can choose your family. I mean, I was born into a family, but like, I chose my spouse and my stepson. Like, they're my people, they're my support system. And I mean, all of my friends that I've made out here, it's good to have people that you can lean on, for sure. And I feel like loneliness is probably the worst feeling that there is in the world. And when I see some people that have, maybe some of these like alt-right, even kind of more into like the neo-Nazi kind of views, I just like see extremely hurt and lonely people that are like looking for some sense of camaraderie, and they're finding it in these like super toxic circles. And I feel really a little bit bad for them, I guess, in a sense, because there are just so many levels of like your life. There's a lot of trauma there, and like, I do believe in reconciliation, and there's no lost causes. So I think there's something there. I think there's also, it takes a lot of energy to like kind of unpack that trauma. And there's people in this world that have that energy. I think it's really incumbent on white guys to be talking to other white guys about their views and like kind of checking them. I think sometimes this onus of like education can kind of fall on people of color, and I feel like I feel some duty when I see someone like a white guy espousing like pretty racist stuff, because there was a time that like people got on me about what I was saying. I used to, spout off on social media, and I didn't know what I was talking about. And like when you're so like you're fed this propaganda from such a young age, it's really hard to break through that, especially without having the privilege of going to college, having the privilege of traveling. Like back to my story of going to Denmark. It's like,
great point.
I mean, that was a world reckoning moment, even getting to go to England. I was like, oh wait, wow, we're like, there's like other countries like doing pretty much the same stuff we're doing, sometimes in some ways better. So you gain that perspective. And for a long time I kind of like did not like living in the United States, and I wanted to leave like after I had seen some other parts of the world. But because of the pandemic, I really had to explore my own country, and I fell back in love with it, of just, the national parks and just in the land, getting in touch with that, and just fixating a lot on moving out west and being out here. You were asking about unwinding, like hikes for sure, a huge thing for me. Done a lot of good ones up at Mount Hood, out at the beach, out around Bend. And I also do really like to camp. I think being in touch with nature is really important. Getting off of, I honestly hate my smartphone. I really do. I like hate how much of my life revolves around it, and how often I look at it, and that, it gives you that little dopamine rush every time you pick it up, and it really is, it's addicting. It's a different drug.
The operative syllable is the first one, dope.
Yeah.
You're a dope.
Don't be hating on dope.
Dupe and dope, they're closely related. So Patty and I have an ongoing conversation about the contribution of technology and the dangers of it. And I'm struck by the statistics around loneliness and people who live their life a lot on social media.
Yeah.
So a balance is a tool, like it's everything else.
Yeah.
It's like AI. Is it dangerous? Hell yes. Is it potentially world-changing?
Yeah.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
And we don't have responsible structures to take the responsibility of figuring it out, not from the position of how much profit can be generated by AI or how much social control. So if I were any generation looking at my own, I would be disgusted. I would not be happy with me. But I want to say, wait, I'm trying. I really am trying.
Well, and there were so many people that tried. I mean, you look at even just these recent protests at Portland State, like there's precedence for this of occupying a building, and there's been so much pro-clutching about it. And my office is the office that is removing all of the graffiti and putting Millar Library back together, and the guy who's doing it sits right behind me, in my office. And like, nobody is like, I wouldn't say like mad at the protesters. I think that, that's our job of what we do. Like, and Millar was up for renovation anyways. And a lot of it's being paid for by insurance funds. And
can you explain what happened there for the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So in response to the Palestinian genocide being perpetrated by Israel right now, there were all across the nation, there's been encampments popping up on campuses, and Portland State was no exception to that. So it started in the park blocks in front of Millar Library, and then the Portland Police Bureau came and pushed them up onto the portico, or like the front entrance of the Millar Library. And then I guess at some point students had been able to hide in the bathrooms of Millar, and so they were able to open it up from the inside after hours. And then after that, the floodgates just kind of opened, and protesters were in the Millar Library. And that was an interesting time, because I'm walking distance. I live 3-minute walk from Millar Library, so my neighborhood kind of turned into a little protest zone. And then they were in there for several days. I can't even remember at this point. And then Portland Police Bureau, they infiltrated the library, cleared them all out. There were several people that were protesters that were able to escape. I can't remember the exact number of people. I feel like they arrested like 30 people. And even that, too, was kind of an annoying statistic that there was like, let's say, 1 in 3 of the people that got arrested were students. And they're like, look, these are all these outside agitators and all of this. And it's like, well, a lot of people got away. And my guess is that they probably prioritized the safety of the students that were in there. But we've learned so much. And like us, Gen Z, like growing up during the 2020 protests after George Floyd was murdered, like we saw the brutality of the police. And I was living in Virginia at the time, in Richmond, former capital of the Confederacy. Virginia State Police came down on us hard. They enjoy it. They really like it. You can tell. They like have smiles on their faces. They like doing that.
Ew.
And it's irritating to see that for sure. But after they cleared the library, Portland Police Bureau stuck around and beat on faculty, staff, students for like hours. And then there was that one dude who like ran his car into the protest, and then he like maced a couple of people, and it's just like, I don't know. I don't know where we started this conversation, but
it's discouraging.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you were talking about, I think you need to give yourself a little bit of grace with your generation, because I mean, like the Vietnam War protests, like those weren't anything to turn your nose up at, and that did set precedents, and that like it's not for a lack of trying, but like the fascist system that we live in is so well oiled and good. I mean, there's no violence like state violence, but if you or I do anything like that, if we're out there protesting, then it just opens up the floodgates for state violence.
I think this is the time for us to be a bit more subversive in how we protest then, don't you think?
Yeah.
So if just without going into it, but the way that the Black Lives Matter movement was destroyed by Trump and the federal troops, I mean, no one's paying attention to the fact that almost all the violence was initiated by the state.
Yeah.
And then once you've uncapped it, then there's an element of protesters, not even a large element, who have either legitimate grievances or just pissed off in general or just high as a kite or whatever it is. And then they can say, oh, look.
Yeah. Well, it becomes about so much more. Like, yes, the focus was on Palestine. I think that's so important, and still to bring light to what is continuing to happen day in and day out.
Correct.
I want to be very clear and adamant about that it is still happening. But it was about so much more. It was the grievances with capitalism as a whole. And honestly, you could see like the literature that was out there in front of the library, and the whole atmosphere of it. It was so there were families out there, there were kids, they were grilling food and like handing out food to people, and there's literature, books, people swapping, and community, like legit real community. And that was exactly what I remember. It was my first time seeing it here in Portland, but it was exactly what I saw during the George Floyd protests back in Richmond. And where they set it up is they recontextualized the Robert E. Lee statue, which, Confederate general, he's, anyways, so they have this, like, they used to have this 100-foot-ish tall, like, statue of Robert E. Lee on a horse. And can you just, like, imagine being, I just, like, tried to put myself in the headspace of, like, being a black person that lives in Richmond and, like, having to drive past that statue and just, this country values my life like so little that they would erect like statue like this. And they're not even old. That was the thing with all the statues. They were like, oh, my history. And it was like, no, this was put up like by the Daughters of the Confederacy in like 1910. It wasn't like this great historic monument. But the point of what I'm trying to get at is it kind of, when there was like it was more like a block party, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. And it was in like the Ritz. It's called Monument Avenue in Richmond. It's like one of the ritziest parts of the city. And I think some people were like cool with it. They were fine, but it kind of went on for like a couple weeks, And I think some of the homeowners were like, all right, let's, like, y'all got to get out of here kind of thing. But never was it violent. Never. It always got escalated by the police. Always. And, like, it was always just chill. And, like, it was fun. And there was community. And then you have, you know, the cops come in and then it's all just, it's over. Because they know that kind of community is a spark.
Oh,
know?
I think you're so right.
And they know that will spread so quick when people start seeing that, you know, I don't know.
So less angry protests and more picnic protests is what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, even what they did, like taking the library, like, and people were still allowed in. It was the university that closed down the library and made it inaccessible. And Millar used to apparently be open to the public, and it's now only accessible to students. And I mean, when I've gone in there, I've never seen more than like 24 people in there. Like during the protest, yeah, that was like the most people I've seen there in the year of working at Portland State. So yeah, anyways. Wow. I feel like I have a knack showing up in places when big historic moments happen.
Really?
Yeah. When I lived in D.C., I lived less than a mile away from the Capitol building on January 6th. But yeah, that was kind of crazy to live so close to the Capitol building when the insurrection happened.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I was watching the videos at work and I was just like, oh my God. And when I got home, I even rode the metro home with some people that obviously had like been in the Capitol building.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, it was kind of astounding to see that, and just kind of, again, like talking about law enforcement in this country, like there were a lot of people not on their A game that day. There was a lot of people, like law enforcement wise, like how did they get in to the Capitol building? I've been to the Capitol building many times. There's a lot. I can't even remember how many police forces operate out of DC, but it's like 40. If you like go and look at all of the police forces that have jurisdiction within the District of Columbia. And there was so much lead up to that insurrection, and it was easy. It was just like in the open. It was on like social media. Like it was on this one called Parler. I don't know if you know this social media, but tends to skew very right on the people that use it. And yeah, so I was like somehow living in DC when that happened, you know, so that was kind of crazy. And then yeah, again, being a PSU employee when this protest happened.
Yeah. I always feel a little appreciative when I feel like I've been in something that we'll look back at.
Yeah. I think the history will look back on those protesters very fondly. I think it's
Which ones are you talking about?
The Millar Library protesters.
Okay.
I don't know about the insurrectionists in DC. I think a lot of them have been arrested at this point. I mean, a lot of them, and it just goes to show the difference between like understanding of how our government works is that like the people in Millar, like faces covered, you know, like they like, so identity wasn't, and some of them like had like makeshift like shields that were made out of like what was it, like trash cans or whatever, and like duct tape, and they have their goggles because the police will pepper spray you. They have helmets because like they have batons. And so we've learned a lot, like how to just exist and survive in this system. And a lot of those people were young. Like I was there when the protesters ran out of the building, and yeah, it just we've learned a lot. Our generation, we've grown up in this like school shooter kind of like fascist police state. And so if the word's subversive, we've learned how to be subversive and get creative in the ways that we protest.
Yeah, I know Jerry alluded to technology pieces, and that was where I was so thankful for Gen Zers figuring that stuff out, because I remember a story of one of Trump's rallies where there was some people who figured out, oh, they're just letting anybody sign up for a free ticket to go.
Oh, yeah.
And they got people online to do it. And here Trump's campaign thought, we've got 1 million people that want to come to this thing.
Yeah.
And totally fucked them over because
Nobody
it was all
showed
fake.
up, right?
Yeah.
I love that kind of thing. That like being
That's
able
subversive.
to do something. Yeah, it's subversive. Doing something in solidarity that doesn't actually cause harm to anyone,
Yeah.
but makes the point.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I think one of the things that makes me sad, we used to be able to mobilize 20,000 people in Portland for anything, and we can't do that anymore. I mean, COVID, there's the whole COVID phenomenon of people hunkering down and not having unhunkered, and then there's the increased reality of how police deal with these things. People are afraid.
Yeah.
In Mexico City, 68 maybe, I don't know, 258 students were killed in a demonstration. Guess what? That broke the movement.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because fear now was legitimate, that you could be mowed down at any minute, and that's a deterrent to taking risks.
Yeah.
So, and I saw the same thing here with the federal troops, and it's just like, I mean, one of the things that's frustrating for me is I'm very limited in my mobility. My balance is actually not entirely mental. I can't drive anywhere. I don't have a car. I cannot get to places to engage, and I have long COVID. So I'm extremely limited in what I can do and unlimited in what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incumbent on us to create a society where everyone can kind of, contribute in the way that they're able to. So,
I
mean,
agree.
even just doing this, like, you're doing more than so many, and this is really important.
Without this, I would be in deep trouble with myself. I'm not nonviolent in these moments. I'm nonviolent, and then I see oppression, and I want to hurt them. I want to hurt the perpetrators.
It requires having grace for people that probably don't have much or any for you.
Yeah.
And that's incumbent on, that's what makes a leader. Is sometimes I go to the city council meetings, and whether I agree with their politics or not, a lot of those, all of the commissioners and Ted Wheeler, they take a lot of punches, and like, that's hard to just, and nor should you act like it doesn't affect you, because it does. And like, there's kind of a phrase like, don't read the comments kind of thing, but I don't know, my curiosity gets the best of me, and I do read them, because I use people as a barometer. Like, I want to see what people are saying, to be like, oh, that person like really doesn't know me, that's off base, or like, wow, that's actually kind of true. Or I try to be like really honest with myself, for sure. But I think that, yeah, it takes some self-awareness to realize that the way that things are in this society, when you look at the inequality, it can pretty much always be traced to some sort of systemic racism. Like, every time that black folks in this country have had it, they were playing the game, they were part of the capitalist system, they were creating businesses, they had something going, they built a community, they had a neighborhood. It's like, oh, let's build a freeway over this, let's push people out of their homes, let's find a way to destroy their businesses. And a lot of times it was overtly just destroying and burning down black owned businesses.
Yeah, like
so many
Tulsa.
times. Yeah. And it goes beyond Tulsa. Like, I've definitely, and a lot of people don't even know about that, the burning of Black Wall Street, but like,
Yeah,
it goes so much deeper. That's just like, luckily that one's kind of had a resurgence, but I don't remember learning about that in elementary school.
Well,
I heard about
me
that, not even in college, like just through social media and people educating. So,
well, I mean, there was the Harlem Renaissance.
yeah.
I mean, that whole period of cultural flourishing in Harlem, and I do not understand the specifics of how that eroded, and then Harlem became this sentence. If you're living in Harlem, you were sentenced to endure hard and difficult things.
Yeah.
And now it's fucking gentrified.
Yeah.
Bedford Stuyvesant is gentrified. There should be a Geneva War Tribunal for crimes against humanity by developers. You know?
I think you might be onto something.
That one's a keeper.
Well, I mean, and it's just hoarding wealth.
Yeah.
It's more wealth than you could ever spend in your entire life. Like, you can only live in one house at a time. Like, why are there people in this nation, in this world, that own hundreds of units, if not, thousands? Like, it's just, you're talking about unbelievable wealth that you couldn't spend in 10,000 lifetimes. And when I talk about, like, wealth redistribution, or we kind of talked a little bit about, like, what it means to be a socialist, it's like, you want an egalitarian society, you want equity, and we can't have that when there's like 500 people in this world that are hoarding more wealth than you could even really imagine, and they just have so much control over your life, and the only way to counteract that is to be talking to people, gathering in community, building out a working class movement. And I think that's, a lot of what Bernie was talking about. And I know one thing we wanted to talk about is kind of, some mentors in my life. And I really do look up to Bernie Sanders. I got to meet him back in D.C. And he has been someone that I feel like has our best interest in mind. And he's just like, he's authentic. I feel like he's been saying the same thing since he was young. There's so much evidence of that. And I very much, I've read his books, and he ran several times before he ever won. And so I kind of look at that, and I think it's a lot more important to build, again, something organic and move through this in my own way. And I very much am someone that, like, I read a lot, but and I listen to what other people say to me, but I really have to find things out on my own. I learn through doing, and I think that's a lot of people. But I think sometimes we're afraid to try things, and I just had to try. I had to throw my hat in the ring this time, and I've learned so much. So I feel like I'm on a good track. Andrea's become probably my best friend in this race of, I don't know, you kind of got to commiserate with other people that are in it, because sometimes it's kind of hard. And even lately, Andrew's kind of come under some scrutiny from some less than kind people, and some people have, like, said some stuff about me, but it's getting to the point that, like, people, some of these things, like doxing people, like putting personal information out there, like, that's dangerous, and targeting people. And there are definitely folks in this race whose policies I do not agree with, but I will not stoop to that level.
And now that you have a family, you have to be a little more careful than when you were just you.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because it's not just you.
Yeah.
And that...
I truly couldn't do it without a family, though. I always knew that was a huge part of it, that I needed to find my family unit, because you need that support. You need people that know you well and that love you regardless of what people are saying, because people are can be mean, not always mean. Yeah. But it's just like, when I see that, I just see a hurt person trying to hurt people, and like, I kind of, I don't know if it's mean to say, but like, almost pity them, and like, I'm like, what have you been through, And like, I very much, I believe that to be a good politician, like, you do it because you love people. Like, you genuinely want to hear people's stories. Like, you want to know them. That's what a good politician, in my opinion, should be all about.
If only that was the case through and through. If only that was the type of politician. If only that was how people saw other people who they have opposing views from.
Yeah.
The world would be entirely different.
Definitely. And I do like that it's nonpartisan at the local level. I think we get really caught up in the labels, for sure. I don't know. I genuinely care about people. I want the best for them. And I hope that I can bring that to this race and continue to grow my campaign and grow, greater sense of community. I think the thing that I've been even more interested in is this idea of, like, actually becoming a community organizer and what that means. Because there's so many, like, environmental groups, different social activism groups in this city, and a lot of it is fragmented, you know, like people don't know each other.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done. I know I'm not the first person to be saying this, and it takes work, but even just, you know, Andrea recommending me to come talk to y'all, and I had Andrea come out to that iTech Center that I was talking about earlier, to a salmon bake that they put on, and that was like super fun to have them come out to that, and just trying to find opportunities to include other candidates. And I put on a candidates forum last weekend at Portland State, and there was 10 candidates. It was, you know, it was a decent event, and that's the kind of stuff that I was wanting to do, is just like kind of, I guess, make opportunities for people to get their message out, but also for the public to be involved in the democratic process.
Yeah, I think that's really critical.
Can I just, before we, I know we're getting close to the end here, I just wanted to be sure that you got to say everything you wanted to say about the bipolar disorder.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's really important for me to address the bipolar disorder. I kind of figured that it would come up in the campaign, and, you know, this will not be the last time I run for something, so I didn't know when it would come up, but I figured it was better to just, full disclosure, get it out there, and it's kind of a central part of why I'm running. Like, I see, living downtown, I see people in crisis all the time, and I hear a lot of these quick solutions of, let's just, you know, put them in jail, or it'll all just get fixed, or march them into a camp. And it's like, all right, well, if you met one person with mental illness, you've met one person. My story is, in 2018, I had a manic episode, and it was predicated on, I had kind of got caught up in the bad, I guess, or inept medical system that we have right now, is there weren't a lot of doctors in my college town. And so we only had one psychiatrist at Virginia Tech for like 30,000 students. Like, it was insane. And no pun intended. But so I got referred into a community doctor. He was just a general practitioner, and he put me on Prozac for depressive symptoms, and then also Adderall. And both of those are really bad for people with bipolar, and I was not sleeping. I studied Arabic and Middle Eastern studies in college, in addition to the building construction, sustainability stuff. And I was over in Oman, and I was not sleeping, and I kind of went off the rails a little bit, and I ended up in a mental hospital over there for 14 days. And I had to get medically escorted back to the U.S. after all of that. And then, you know, I had a whole summer where I was on the streets. I was not communicating with my family. I was fortunately able to eventually get reconnected with them, but I spent a lot of time kind of just wandering in the way that I see a lot of people do in Portland. And I really feel for people that are struggling, and like that's my focus, you know. It's like getting people roped back in to society and building out our social safety net, in the sense of like making sure people are housed, that they have healthy food, that they have clean drinking water and clean air to breathe, that, you know, they have the healthcare that they need. And this is a big thing to tackle, but we absolutely can do it. And so I definitely bring that lived experience and that perspective of, we have to be helping the most vulnerable in our society, and it will reap dividends. Like, we will truly all be better for it if we are honing in and focusing on the most vulnerable and getting them what they need.
I believe that too. Absolutely. Wow. So you've been there. You've seen it. You've lived that.
Yeah. And like I said, I have a very privileged life, and luckily my family had the resources to be able to help me, but that is not the story for so many people in this country. And it took so much to get back to good. It took 2 years to just get back to baseline, and 5 years for my manic episode to feel like I was like thriving again, or have my brain back at least, and reach that like some level of stability. But yeah, I really feel for people, and I think we have a lot of interesting ideas floating around. I'm a fan of Portland Street Response. I would really like to see that expanded. I wish that Virginia had something like that when I was going through my manic episode. It's dangerous to involve someone with a gun when there's mental illness at play, because and so few times is it really necessary to have someone with a gun. Like, I guess if there's an active shooter, probably, I guess, might be an opportunity for that. But like, if someone's in crisis, I think there might be better ways and people more specially trained to be able to handle something like that.
Good.
I put myself out there on Reddit in one of those Ask Me Anythings, and my website wasn't developed very well at that point, and I just kind of like wanted to put something out there and like get some, even like the negative feedback. It's good and you should learn something from it. And there was a couple people that were like, I would never vote for you, like you're schizophrenic, or like, like how do we get rid of people like you, or get you, like why do you move to Portland? It's like, I mean, honestly, I did move here. There were so many reasons, but I felt like the mental health care was better, and I do feel like it's better. And I know that maybe that is frightening to some people that live here, but it's a bit better than where I came from. And I do feel like the conversations are different here, that people are a lot more open-minded in the starting place. There is a lot more empathy, compassion, and this stuff takes time, like getting people into treatments. And like,
yeah.
I mean, there's also just like, once you are on the streets, it is so hard to get back into housing. And I think like my wife sees it all the time at work. There's a lot of kids that, living on the streets, and that it's unacceptable. It can't happen. And we're all in agreement on that, but it's like, how do you...
Shouldn't we all be in agreement on that?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
How do you... Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. We're all in agreement on this, except money. You expect us to invest money?
Yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I use this image from time to time. This leader of the American Indian movement, when they occupied Alcatraz, talked about 2 world wars, World War I, World War II, in one generation.
Mm.
He said a great psychotic pall settled over the country. With all these men who'd been through war with no mental health services.
Yeah.
I mean, holy shit.
Yeah.
So we have this whole... And so that's a little before my generation, but it certainly spills over. So we have all this denial about the mental health needs of soldiers who have been through fucking hell.
Yeah.
So I was always one deferment ahead. I never got drafted. I was 26 when I got back from Africa. And yet I'm outraged at the total lack of willingness to address the effects. And now it's not just war. It's like you don't have to go to war to be fucked up on drugs. You don't have to go to war to be sort of militarized in how you think, that you can actually function freely in the society when you come back.
Yeah.
You look at the rejection of the Vietnam vets, which was completely inappropriate, and the damage that did. So it's like there's a mental health need, and that was before COVID.
Yeah.
So we could be investing 10 times what we're investing in mental health and still might not be able to truly address the problem.
Yeah.
But if we don't care about, let's just take the soldiers. I mean, I'd take everybody, but it's like, that's why I say everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. It's like, we've created this mess. There will be sacrifices needed to fix it.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to make, not nobody, but
Yeah.
the idea of discomfort. I mean, we're in a...
Well, I think it just goes so much deeper than just, meds. And even, I mean, I see it as kind of a lifestyle deal, in the sense that being well adjusted to a profoundly sick society is not exactly a mark of health. And I've seen so many statistics, if it's like 1 in 2 people have a mental illness, or maybe that's just for Gen Z, or, if you don't have one, then you know someone who doesn't. Like,
you're
how
not-
can so many people be having mental illness? And it's like, is our society created in a way that is conducive to how humans actually are meant to live? Because everything I've read about bipolar, it's an adaptation for people that live like near the poles, that like in the winter, you kind of go into like a little about hibernation. Like, it's not, I've only ever had the one manic episode, and honestly, I feel like it was like really caused by being put on the Prozac and the Adderall, which is like this human-made solution to this problem, and that kind of spun me. And then, because I never really had anything like that leading up to it, and then I've always been more on like the depressive side, and in the wintertime that just kind of looks like I might eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's every now and again, play some video games, and hang out with my family and do some board games. It's like, we're supposed to rest in the winter, and that's what I kind of love about Portland, is I don't have to feel bad about resting in the winter, because the weather is, you know, kind of dreary, and I kind of have come to love it. Like, in a weird way, I'm almost like the summer's cool, but if the rain had stuck around, I don't think I would have minded.
I'm with you. I love that. I love the winter.
Yeah, it
here.
gives me the ability to rest, and I think that we were talking about rest earlier, and I, you know, need to challenge myself to take more rest. But rest, like, take your time. But like, that's the thing, is our system right now, how many people can afford to do that? And that's kind of the point, is that you're so overworked and underpaid that you're just barely keeping up, and you don't really have enough time to pay attention to the people that are actually pulling the strings on your life. So,
or the time to spend with the people who care about us, which is the thing that staves off that mental health concern.
yeah, exactly. Like, you go to work to provide for your family who you never see, to pay for a house that you never live in. You're never there. So
Yeah.
I think it's something, you know, that I would say to people that are like, oh, why should I like someone with bipolar disorder? I think I have a very unique perspective on our system. I think that I see it for what it is, and am able to kind of cut through some of the minutia of like getting caught up in some of the more frivolous parts of the capitalist system, and kind of just calling it out for what it is. You know, I've kind of been to the bottom, seen how it is, and I think that I would bring that lived experience to creating actual policy that would be long-lasting and effective.
That makes perfect sense to me. I fully believe in bringing people to positions of leadership that do understand and see things, or can see things from that like slightly stepped outside
Yeah.
No,
point
I
of
think
view.
outsiders always see things more clearly. Because I talk a lot about this image of, I'm not sure who discovered water, but I'm sure it wasn't a fish. If you're swimming in it, you can't see
I
it.
love that.
Right?
I'm putting that one into
And
my repertoire.
good, and it's, everything is in the public domain. So for me, living in Africa for 3 years was getting outside and then coming back with new eyes, and
Yeah.
nothing has been the same since then.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's people who've had experiences. So you can have an abstract concept of mental illness and bipolar,
Yeah.
which probably bears almost no relationship to the actual condition. I'm dealing with this. My wife died of dementia, and people have ideas about dementia that don't correspond at all to the reality.
Yeah.
So people who know those realities, whatever they are more trustworthy. Not because the other people are intentionally untrustworthy, but they literally don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They think they do, but they don't. So I think we need to bring all of who we are to the table. So for you to run, you really need to bring that part of who you are, or you're not really running. Some part of you is running.
And I think that experience of having the manic episode and the subsequent depression, it was so humbling. I think before that, you know, I had a super high caliber girlfriend. I was the student body president at Virginia Tech. I was involved in everything. And I think there was a lot of ego wrapped up in that. And it was so humbling to kind of see it all unravel really quickly. And you realize this stuff happens fast. Like, you could have it all together and you miss rent and then you're on the street and you can't figure out a place to live, and you fall into this despair, and then you're in contact with a lot more substances, and you might turn to that to kind of ease a lot of the suffering. And like, I can't really blame you. I feel like if you don't really have hope, that's, you know, like, you're just trying to make it through the day. Like, people that ask for money, and there's folks that are like, oh, they're gonna spend it on drugs, like, don't give them cash. And it's like, I mean, if drinking a beer is what got you through the day, like, I don't know, who am I to judge you? I have not, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's really important to have people in those positions making laws that understand that this lifestyle that we have is extremely fragile, and you know, it can unravel at any time. So, and also just having like grace for people. We're not robots. We cannot do things perfectly, and allowing room for error, allowing room for, you know.
Now we're talking about compassion and empathy. Yeah. Those are unfashionable words. They're almost subversive. They're so unfashionable.
Almost subversive.
So I always go back, you know, I saw that sign in Alder Commons, Black Lives Matter, women's rights are human rights. The last thing was kindness is everything. And I said 60 years of activism, and I'm reduced to understanding that without kindness, nothing else matters.
Yeah.
If we're not treating each other well, there is no hope.
Yeah.
So that's why we try to speak the truth to goodness.
That's right.
Why we have this podcast. That's how I live my life, and have for a very long time. We live in a toxic, negative environment. People who do good things like, oh, Jeremy, you're doing a really good thing by taking the time and energy to put yourself into a position that's not always comfortable, to try to talk about the things that matter to you, to protect the things that you value.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that, for being part of this deeper conversation that's the beginning of everything. So,
yeah. I think the last thing I'll say is that I want to be a role model for people that have mental illness, if there truly is that so many of us in Gen Z and younger have mental illnesses. I want people to know that you can do this and keep going, because, I mean, I don't know, there's definitely been some times that I did not want to be on this earth, and, you know, if you end it, then you know for sure it won't get better, and if you stick around, it might not get better immediately, and a lot of times it doesn't, but, you know, just keep sticking around for one more day just to see the wild stuff that just happens. And I don't know, you
end up with a beautiful wife and a beautiful child.
Yeah, it's crazy to look at my life and think about all the times that I thought about not wanting to be here. And yeah, I would say stick around and just see how it all unfolds. You know, we need you. And
your voice is very important to people who are on the verge of giving up hope.
Indeed.
I mean, I just say it over and over and over again. If you've been on the verge of not wanting to be alive on the planet, then people who are on the verge of not wanting to be alive on the planet will trust you.
Yeah.
Because you know that it's not a failure on their part, that they have this feeling.
Not at all.
That it's systemic, that it's almost inevitable given the con game that's being played on us. So I just feel like I really want to support you in doing that. To just be, did the word authentic come up earlier somewhere in the conversation?
No, but it fits.
Who we are. We give it, we share, I share who I am. Right now there are a lot of limitations with that, but there's a lot of experience and a lot of love and a lot of care. And there's not nearly enough love and care in the world, so I can't go wrong if I'm adding to that. And the same is true for you and your wife and your family, and for what we're trying to do, and have been privileged to have the conversations.
Yeah.
We are so blessed to have created a forum for these conversations. So speak I statements. I'm grateful. She's grateful. I don't need to use an I statement. We're grateful.
I'm grateful too.
Yeah.
This has been great. I really appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing yourself and the stories that have led you to where you are and that are inspiring you for where you're going. Super amazing. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Speaking Truth to Goodness. It was a pleasure to have Jeremy Beausoleil Smith share his passionate and insightful perspectives on making Portland a better place for all its residents. Jeremy's commitment to mental health, renters' rights, and sustainable development are just a few of the areas where he hopes to make a significant impact. We covered a lot today, from the personal influences that shape his political views to the practical aspects of his campaign. Jeremy's approach to integrating his life experiences with his professional skills in project management illustrates a holistic approach to governance that seeks to address systemic issues at their roots. We hope this discussion has inspired you to think more deeply about the role of personal experiences in shaping public service. Don't forget to engage with us by liking, commenting, and sharing this episode. Keep speaking truth to goodness, because goodness is all around.